Hey folks and friends, today we're going to be going over just some of the basics here. Basically, I've got some customers that need a little bit of help with their starter kits, and so I thought, why not make a video just to have an online reference. Basically what we're going to be going over is like your typical Ego setup, your Ego starter kit, showing some of the ins and outs, how it operates, and basically some of the things to look out for just in case you might have any issues or questions. Obviously, if you're one of my customers, you've got my phone number. You can call me pretty much anytime, and I'm more than willing to help. Okay, so this here in particular is the Tesla Spider. Works like any other Ego battery, pretty much almost anything out there, really. Where you have 5-click on, 5-click off. You have adjustability down here at the bottom. If your battery doesn't have adjustability, then that's okay too. Most generally, you're going to be set at 3.7 to 4.1 volts if you have a battery that is just set. It doesn't have your dial at the bottom. Okay, this battery here is off right now. The reason that I know this battery is off is because when I push this button here, this button does not light up. Okay, there is always going to be a light here at the button. If you push this thing 5 times within 2 seconds, it will turn on. If you turn it again 5 times within 2 seconds, it shuts off. Okay, and you can easily know if it's on or off. If the light is either on when you push the button, you know it's on. If it's off when you push the button, the light does not come on. So let's go ahead and turn it on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You get a little bit of flash there to let you know something's actually happening with the battery. And then when you push the button, you see that there's a light there. Okay. If we want to turn it off, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you push the button and nothing happens. Okay, there is no light. The only time you're ever going to shut this thing off is if you're going to put it in your pocket, you're going to put it in your bag, you're going to put it in your pouch, somewhere where the battery might be, the button might be pushed, activating your tank, and you don't know it. Okay, so it's just like this. If this thing is going off in your pocket, it's making the coil on your tank really hot, and it's basically wasting your battery, wasting your coil, and wasting your juice probably too. Okay, so you don't want that to happen. Otherwise, if this thing is just sitting, then it's perfectly fine to be on non-stop. Okay, it could be on for a month. If you don't use it, that's fine. Okay, so let's go ahead and show you the basics of the Tesla. The reason that I chose this battery is because it does have the ring here up top. This ring, you can remove it, and you really need to if you're going to use something with Ego threads. Okay, this is the standard Aspire BVC tank. Okay, so you're going to then screw the tank on, and then you'll be able to use your setup. Obviously, you know there needs to be juice in there, so we'll go over how to fill it and everything here in a second. One of the main issues that most people have with these batteries is that they'll screw their tank on and they'll just keep going until it bottoms out and it's completely as tight as it possibly can be. Well, that is a huge mistake. You do not want to do that, okay? And we'll go over why. There is a small peg in the center of the tank. That peg will push the disc down there, and so then some things that you screw on, you won't get connection then. Okay, and that could be part of the reason why some of the battery chargers short out, the reason why the tank's not firing when you're pushing your button. Okay, so that causes a lot of issues. Now, why does that disc go down in the battery? Let me explain that. Okay, there's 2 necessary evils there with that disc being able to be crushed and moved down. There is a rubber, plastic, or Delrin insulator underneath the disc that is in the center of your battery. Okay, and what happens is that stops juice that might leak out of your tank from going into your battery, and it also isolates your positive and negative connections. Okay, so it has to be there for those 2 reasons. There is no way around it. So that's the reason why I try to tell people, when you're screwing your tank onto your battery, you just go until you feel resistance, okay, and then you go a little bit further. just a little bit. You don't go a quarter turn, a half turn, a full turn. You don't go till it bottoms out. You just go until it feels fairly snug on there. If it loosens up during the day, if you find that you're pushing the button and it's not actually doing anything, you might find that your tank might have loosened up a little bit. That's okay, no big deal. Just go ahead and snug it up again and you're good to go again. Okay, but that is much less of a hassle than if you sunk your connection and it's not working anymore. But if it does happen, you can take a little screwdriver. Okay, you'll take a little screwdriver. Sorry, my tank's trying to roll around. You'll take a little screwdriver and you'll go in between the outer edge of the connection that's down in there where the threads are, the inner 510 threads, and you'll just kind of like wedge it, and then you'll go to the opposite side and you'll wedge it. And what you're doing there is you're slowly bringing up the disc that is the positive connection for the battery so that it will actually stick out far enough to make connection again. And so you've got to pay close attention to that, because once that happens, a lot of times it gets overturned again and it doesn't make connection again. So it's kind of like one of those things where you'll find yourself in a uphill struggle. So just keeping that connected. Same thing with the battery charger. With the battery charger, I'm going to screw this thing on. I'm going to feel resistance. I'm going to go about a quarter turn with this because it just seems a little bit loose no matter what you do. These chargers aren't the best quality. They're made out of plastic. So you can turn this a little bit further without any issues there. A quarter turn. So you're feeling resistance, you get a quarter turn. This light right here will probably flash. Some of them will stay on all the time while it's charging. But this light here is the one that's on the charger, is the one you got to pay attention to. This light here should turn red when it's charging. It should be green when it's done charging. Not all battery chargers are like that. The ones that I sell here at the Vapors Wind Vape Shop are that way though. So if you wanted to calculate how long your charger should take for your battery to charge, what you'll do is, like this one here, this Tesla Spider is 1300 milliamp hours. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide the output here, which it says 420 milliamp hours, divided by 1300, and so, or excuse me, 1300 divided by 420. So that will give you the estimated time within hours that your battery needs to charge. If you have a 900 milliamp hour battery, it should charge in about 2 1/4 hours. Okay, it's just a little bit over 2 hours. Okay, so that's the charger thing. This is a USB end for the charger, and the charger can be used in a computer or a laptop or something, but what is most generally recommended is to buy the right adapter for the 120 volt outlet, your standard outlet at home, and you can just plug it in that way, and you risk it's a little less risk there of messing up your USB connector over time, because you're constantly plugging it in and unplugging it. Where people get into trouble with the charger is, like, they'll unscrew their tank and there might be a little bit of condensation in the top of the battery there. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to always take a look at that and make sure that that's dry. If you need to use a paper towel, like roll it and stick it in there and swab it and dry it. Use a Q-tip is the easiest way to do that, because if you screw this in, the connections here on your charger, they're so close together, and if you add liquid in the mix, you might actually short the charger out, or sometimes, if you're lucky, the charger just won't charge correctly. And so then, for one, you can either you'll have to get a new charger, or for two, you'll have to make sure that your charger's clean. But a way to actually be proactive of that issue is to just go ahead and make sure that your battery connection is dry. Okay, when you're dialing your voltage in on your battery, it'll always have a button there, like embossed, or it will have laser engraving like this one, and that basically is your marker. So if I turn this down here at the bottom, you can see there's some graduating marks down here. This starts out at 3.3 volts, which is the lowest. Okay, hopefully you can see that there. And then they have enough room to put the 3.8. So then you'll see 3.8. The next one up from that obviously is 3.9, and then they've done the 4.3 and then the 4.8. Okay, so that's that. This ring right here is nice to have, and it's nice to have because there are some 510 connection tanks out there. They don't have the inboard connection like the Ego does. You can see the connection there, and then this is the 510 connection. The 510 connection uses the inner threads. This one. The Ego connection uses the outer threads. So if you wanted to have a 510 tank on there, you would use that to screw this down. Okay, so now I've got a pretty good tight connection, but there's this gap at the top, and I don't think you could really see that. But what this does is the problem, a slight issue, is that this makes a loose connection here, because these aren't butted up and it's not really tight. It's just a little nipple in the middle, so which is the 510 connection. So what I recommend people do with that is that they make a gap down here, right there in that area, and they tighten the tank and the ring together, and that makes that really, really solid. And sure, there's kind of an unsightly gap down there, but it's function over form. Okay, and that really makes for a tighter fit. Okay, so if you're going to use your Ego tank, don't lose your ring on your Tesla if that's the battery that you have. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you the tank. If you have a removable drip tip, that's actually a little bit better than a fixed drip tip, because if the drip tip breaks, you got to replace the whole tank. With this one, you can customize the tank via the drip tip. You can use a different style of drip tip, a matching color per se, something that you like that fits your mouth better. Okay, but the good part, the functioning part of the drip tip being removable is that every couple of tanks or so, you're going to get a little bit of condensation up through the air chamber, which is right in the center of the tank. Now, when you get a little bit of condensation in your mouth, it's never good. I mean, it's not dangerous. It tastes really gross. So what you're going to do is you're going to remove your drip tip, you're going to rinse it out under the faucet, and then you're going to slap it back on there. As you can hopefully see in this tank, there is sort of like a bowl around this chrome area, and some juice will build up in there as well. And so if that happens, if it bothers you enough, or you're having to rinse your drip tip out more often than you think you should, you can take a Q-tip and swab that too, and make sure that that's dry. So that's the good part about the removable drip tips. Otherwise, if you don't have a removable drip tip, you're going to want to take a Q-tip. If you have to, take a little bit of cotton off if the hole's too small for the Q-tip, and douse it down in there, and you should be able to dry some of that condensation up out of there. If you are at an empty tank, you could also rinse your tank out after you open it so that you can get through the air chamber in there, and then you will be able to get the condensation out that way. Okay, so we're just picturing this on the tank. You're going to need to fill your tank up, and so you're going to unscrew this from your battery. This is the fill portion of the video, by the way. I'm going to remove this bottom area from the tank. Okay, you can hopefully see the whole tank there. I know my lighting's pretty bad. It's a new camera, so getting used to it. But this right here would be where your coil is. Okay, so I've removed my bottom piece with my coil from the tank, as I want to fill the tank. But I'm going to also show you how to change your coil. You can actually remove this piece from the from the cap. I just dripped on my keyboard. And so this would be the coil here. This is your replacement part. This is the wear part in your tank, unless you're hard on your tank. Maybe you drop it or something like that. But so then you can put a new one on, and voila, you've got a brand new tank pretty much as far as function goes. So that's that. I'm going to set this piece down now. Okay. And inside the tank, there's your air chamber. Hopefully you can see that a little bit better now. It's like a chrome tube in the middle. Okay, and you don't want the juice to go through there. That's where the air goes, and that's where that condensation goes sometimes that I was talking about. So you would have your tank like this if you can't get a Q-tip or something down in there to get the condensation out, and you'll just wash it out, and the water will go through, down through the drip tip. Okay, but when you're filling this, you want to make sure that the juice bottle tip is actually to the side of the inner tank there. And so you're just going to let it drip down, and you're watching that post, and as it goes up to the top of that air chamber, then you're full. Okay, so now I'm all the way up to the top. If you overfill, it will come out the drip tip, which is black and hard to see, unfortunately, and it will spill out. So you don't want to overfill, and you don't want to pour down that center the air chamber. The biggest part about the Aspire tanks, they're really great as far as being reliable, okay, but it does have its faults. Nothing's really perfect, right? So one of the major faults with the Aspire tanks is that sometimes the O-rings here can go bad on you. So you want to kind of keep an eye on that. If those O-rings go bad, it could leak. If you're in a hurry and you tighten down this cap, it could actually strip, and that could cause issues. So what you're going to do is you're going to set this thing down there, and you're going to just kind of try to get it as straight as possible as you're setting it down. Okay, and it's got a gap because it's got threads, and you've got to tighten it. So I haven't done any tightening yet at this point. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to go counterclockwise, which is reverse, and I'm going to go until I feel the thing drop as I'm pushing down on it. And so now I felt it drop. Sometimes you can hear an audible click, and when that happens, then it's definitely safe to go ahead and tighten down. And you're going to want to tighten it down all the way, make sure that there's no gap and that it's nice and snug, because if there is a gap in this, it can and probably will leak. And this one in particular actually does have a little gap there, so this is a good example. I know you probably couldn't see it on the screen, but I could almost get my fingernail in that little gap. So what I'm going to do to show you how to correct that is I'm going to loosen it back up, and as I'm tightening, I'm going to go ahead and push. And I'm giving it a really good amount of pressure. And now I'm inspecting it again, and I'm not seeing any gap in there at all. Okay, so that's how that's fixed. You don't want air going in where the juice is, because when that happens, juice comes out the bottom. Now also with the with the BDC Aspire tank, excuse me, you can actually run it too low, and you can then basically get it to leak out the bottom. Otherwise, they hardly ever leaked, unless, like I said, the O-ring was bad. There was a gap there in between the fill cap and the tank, and also another way is, like I said, the O-ring. So that's that. It's pretty much ready to go. Now, when you've got a brand new coil, this is the only time this is going to happen. When you've got a brand new coil, it's completely dry, it's never been used before. I'm seeing air bubbles coming through there, but some people want to use their stuff right away. They'll throw the juice in there, they'll tighten the cap down on the bottom, and they'll put it on their battery and start vaping. Well, you get a burnt taste. You get some cotton that's burning, and it's really gross. Okay, so what you can do to speed up the process, well, actually, I should give you both options. You can set this thing down for about 5 minutes and let the juice feed into the coil where it's supposed to be, so everything gets saturated. Or you can just throw the juice in there. You can take this drip tip, put it in your mouth, and blow air out. Okay. And what that's doing is that's creating pressure in the tank, and it's actually making the juice go down into the coil where it belongs. So then I'm going to screw this on, like I said, just snug. I'm going to turn this up to 3.8 to 3.7 volts. and then I'm just going to go ahead and vape it. I'm going to vape it for probably right around the first tank. Then once you vape the first tank, you've passed the break-in period, then you can go ahead and, if you have adjustments, you can go ahead and adjust it up, you can adjust it down, do whatever you want. So that's pretty much it. We'll see how she vapes. Oh, first got to turn it on first. I should watch my own video. There you go. No dry hit, no nothing. Okay, so the coil inside the tank there, the coil most generally will last anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks. If it, basically the best way that I can tell people, that way they know it when to replace theirs. When it starts to annoy you. When it starts to annoy you, if it starts to leak, then you need a new coil, okay? What happens is that there's sweeteners in the juice, and when you have that sweetener in the juice, it's going to like build up on the metal coil of wire that gets hot, and it's going to create this black gunk stuff on there. It looks like tar, but it's not tar. It's just, like I said, it's from the sweetener. Okay, so when that happens, then it makes the coil harder to heat up. It makes it harder to vape the juice because it's going through this black gunk too. And it also makes the juice taste fairly bad. It can make the juice be discolored, like a darker color, sometimes downright just a black color, and it's not the best. Okay, and so basically everything is just going to start to go downhill. So once that happens, it's time for a new coil. Okay. Best way to say it, when it annoys you, then it's time to get a new one, okay? And that coil is a lot cheaper than buying a new tank, so we're glad that we're able to replace the coil and save money doing it that way to have essentially a new tank, okay? So that's it. Thanks for watching.